Downtown Fargo, where culture, creativity, and community collide. You've heard the headlines. Now hear what's really happening. Bringing the best of Broadway direct to you. The stories, the people, and the places that make downtown the heartbeat of our city. This is Rocky's Downtown Hour with Rocky Schneider.
Happy Friday, everybody. This is Rocky Schneider with Rocky's Downtown Hour. We are going to talk about downtown, but first I want to talk about something that affects the broader region. Right now, Fargo is picking out a convention center location. They have 9 options, and if you haven't been following this is a big deal. So last election, the city put on the ballot initiative to have a lodging tax, which is paid by people in hotels. And so this is something that the residents voted on, they approved, and passed pretty overwhelmingly. And so now there's a tax out there that's for a convention center. I think convention center is something that maybe everyone doesn't realize what it is. It's not necessarily like the Fargo Dome or the Shields Arena or an event center like that where you bring in concerts and things. This is to recruit people to have conventions in Fargo. It's a economic driver. It's a tourism driver. If you've been to conventions elsewhere, think about those things. It's not, you're not going there for an event. You're going there for work. You have sessions there, those sort of things. You know, there's some entertainment conferences as well that you can go to for fun. But this is about getting people to Fargo that maybe have never been to Fargo. Convincing people holding conventions, different associations, bankers associations, accountants associations, everybody has an association to hold their regional or national conferences in Fargo. And so this is great for the region because it brings in people that just spend money. They come here, they'll stay at hotels, they have to go out to eat, they probably shop, bring something home for their loved ones or for themselves. And so this is a huge economic driver, and it's something Fargo's been missing out on for a while. And so I think there's some misconceptions on that. We think about it like, the next Fargo Dome, and watching the Convention Center Committee, which are all on YouTube, on the City of Fargo's YouTube site. They talk a lot about, parking and traffic congestion and how are we going to get there and those sort of things. But I know when I go to conventions, I fly in, I take an Uber there, and hopefully I never have to drive. You want to go to a convention where in between sessions or education sessions, you go out for a drink with a colleague, you go out to dinner, you do business, those sort of things, or you go out and explore new shops or restaurants, those sort of things. So the city's looking at all this. The Convention Center Committee had 9 options. And one of the big things was Charlie Johnson made a comment, Charlie's done great work. He is on his last days, or he's phased out now. He's in part-time role at just the convention center, but he has done great work for us at the Visitors Bureau, which is now Visit Fargo Moorhead. And Shirley Hughes has taken over there, and it looks like a great leader with a great vision. But right now, Charlie's kind of ushering in the convention center efforts. And he made a comment that 10 years ago, he'd be happy with any of these proposals. And so there's 9 good proposals that came in. Appreciate everybody putting those together. I think options are helpful. It makes you really kind of analyze and think about what you want. But the Convention Center Committee is now moving forward with the top 4, or that's the recommendation. And the top 4 then will go out and do a second round of evaluation, interviews, all those things. And so the committee last week talked about, what do we want to see from each of these 4? Now that we know a little bit about them, narrowed it down, here's the things, concerns, questions about each of them. And there's one in downtown, and I feel like it's worth talking about. In fact, every proposal that came in talked about downtown. And I thought that was great. I think I've been on the radio before saying, hey, if they're talking about downtown, that's a good thing. When I was growing up in Fargo, we didn't talk about downtown because there was nothing to talk about. And so keep talking about downtown. It's great. But every proposer came in and talked about the value of proximity to downtown. Every proposal without miss came in and said, here's how far we are from downtown so people can get to downtown, enjoy downtown. And I kind of looked at it and going, well, if downtown is one of the greatest amenities in all of these proposals, doesn't that naturally mean the convention center in downtown is probably the logical one? And the city actually, the convention center group did do their own voting, but they hired an expert to come in who do these all around the country that has nothing to do with any of the proposals, and said, hey, you tell us from your expertise, which were these the best? And the voting wasn't really close. Their grading came in with the downtown proposal as the top one. It met all their criteria more than any other proposer did. And I think that's obvious when you think about conventions you've been to and the ones you've enjoyed. They've all been in a downtown. I've never been to one that has an Applebee's across the street, right? You go downtown and you find a cool shop, you find a cool store, you find some cultural or entertainment thing. I know in Cleveland, I was there and they had the, Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or you go to, Nashville and you have the live music scene that you can walk to. All these different things where you've been to conferences. Philadelphia has a beautiful convention center right in their downtown next to all their historic, Revolutionary War, early American history. You can kind of see it all, right? You want people to do that. And I didn't rent a car when I go to conferences. You walk around. You find a colleague and you walk with them. You don't say, hey, do you want to carpool somewhere? And so just, as the convention center committee talks about that, I think it's important that everybody weighs in. This is a dedicated group of people doing their best, but they want to hear from you as well. And so if you have an opinion out there, you should be writing to the committee. There's a lot of good citizens on the committee. There's also the 5 commissioners from Fargo that ultimately will make the final decision. But I think weighing in with all of them is very important. I know other people are. And so if you want your next generation to, make this decision, figure out how you have input in. Otherwise, someone else is going to make it for you. And so I know I've been talking to people about why downtown is the proximity to downtown is so important. There's a couple of other locations, the Fargo Dome and Drecker, and then there's one out in Southwest that all have good proposals. There's pros and cons to all of them for sure. They're probably all reasonable and would be successful in a different way. I look at which one shows off our community the best and what makes it unique. And I think the most unique thing we have is our downtown, our small businesses. You have restaurants that you don't have anywhere else, shops you don't have anywhere else. That's where you bring new people to the community and show it off. And I think that's what we want out of the convention center too, and get the biggest bang for our buck. I think we've seen Southwest Fargo grow regardless of what you put in there. I was on the planning commission in Fargo for 11 years. It was pretty consistent that's where the new growth was going. It was easy. Developing a farm field is easier than developing an interior thing. And so when you have an opportunity like this to, build your tax base on land you don't have to add more infrastructure to, you take advantage of it as a city. That's how you get paid back. That's how you get the most bang for your buck, the return on investment. And I think the city will find that out when they look at the fiscal responsibility. But that said, the downtown, has its questions too. And I think that's an important thing. Shouldn't take it for granted that just locations shouldn't rise to the top over any other. You also have to have a good proposal. And I think they should look at all the proposals and say, hey, what did we like about each one? And then insert that into what you want. And so I think it's helpful to have 9 proposals. They all had things I thought were interesting. And so I'd be like, hey, let's look at that. One of the things, though, is that they all talked about a green space, some sort of recreation area, because people that go to a convention want to get outdoors, right? They don't just want to be in their sessions all day. And so every proposal talked about how they're going to add a cool green space. Well, once again, the only natural geographic feature we have here other than being flat is our rivers, right? And the downtown location, I've talked about it here before, but we're scared of our river. We've been trained to be scared of our river, but we've invested billions of dollars now to not have to be afraid of the river anymore. It's flood controlled. We have beautiful river trails, and the convention center downtown would take advantage of those trails. The investment's already been made. It's already been flood protected. It's already been beautified. We don't have to add more tax dollars to it. People visiting, we can activate those trails, and I think that amenity would make it better for everybody else when they're active. And so just to lean into our downtown nature and what all the connections it has to it with Broadway Square, Island Park, the river trails that connect neighborhoods, connect up and down on both sides of the river. And I think it would just add to the beautification that we don't have to pay for again, like we would at a new proposal area. This is what going to show off our community and want people to weigh in on it. I encourage everybody to go to the City of Fargo's webpage, go to their YouTube page, watch the Convention Center committee meetings, write to your city commissioners, write to the other members on the Convention Center committee. They're just regular people like you and I, and they want to know what people want. And also educate yourself on what a convention center should be and what it does for our community. And it's a unique thing that we have a history here of voting in local taxes to better beautify and better our community. And it's a great thing. I'm proud of our citizens for doing that. I think it's unique that we're willing to pay a little extra to make our community more successful. And I'm excited to see what comes next, and I'm excited to hear what everyone else is thinking on it as well. But coming up next with us, we have a couple nonprofits here to talk about their work. First, we have the FM Area Foundation, Eric Wilkie, the executive director, and he'll join us when we're back. Welcome back to Rocky's Downtown Hour. I'm joined by Eric Wilkie with the FM Area Foundation. Eric, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Rocky.
Yeah, let's just do a mic check for you here. And why don't you tell us what the FM Area Foundation is?
The FM Area Foundation is the oldest and largest community foundation in our region. And we've been around since 1960. And our job is really to work with donors to keep money local and to make this a vibrant community.
So you're kind of a home, you have your own foundation, and then you're a home to other family foundations and things like that.
We have a couple like that. We've got a lot of family funds that are with us. We hold about 500 different component funds, which keeps us pretty busy. And being around so long, that's part of it. But we manage about $150 million as a community foundation, and then we work to grant that money out both locally and afar. But on a given year, $7 to $10 million we're granting out.
So is it a unique thing for an area to have its own foundation that's not part of like a national group? Or
community foundations they're certainly not new, but there's maybe only about 800 to 1,000 in the country. And the unique thing about community foundations compared to maybe cause-based foundations or corporate foundations or even family foundations is we're very place-based. And so our work really keeps us focused on Cass County and Clay County. Now, we work primarily with donors, philanthropists, people who want to be generous in this region. Their dollars can go anywhere, but we also know that if they're working with us, the odds of those dollars and the odds of them understanding local causes are stronger with their community foundation. So very place-based.
No, I love that. You know, I've talked on the show before that we're humble by nature here, and we're bad about bragging about ourselves. But I think one thing that we've seen is people do put money back into our community. There's a loyalty to our community.
We are very fortunate to live in probably the most generous part of the world. And we've got a lot of real humble, backyard millionaires who are doing a lot for local charities and keeping our region strong. And as much as we need strong businesses, we need strong economy, we also need a strong nonprofit sector too.
So you've granted over $100 million now.
Yes.
Where has that gone? How do people, like, when you try to show what is your success? You know, obviously the numbers are, jaw dropping in some respects, but how do you put a real picture on that?
You know, the thing that I love the most about us as a community foundation is if you're passionate about it, so are we. And we're really about connecting people's passions with a purpose that they can feel good about. And unlike maybe some other organizations that have a very strong focus, we're not as much. And so, last year, as I said, about $7 million and over $1 million of that went to what we call community building or disaster relief. We support animal welfare, arts and culture and creativity. So the fine arts, the orchestras, our Fargo Theater, who that's downtown. Many people don't realize it's a nonprofit and a very important one in our town. Education, health and wellness, scholarships. We kind of do it all. And so it's hard to pinpoint where our money went, but it's all about making this a vibrant community where everyone has an opportunity to be successful.
Yeah, and I'll give my testimonial. I helped found one of the nonprofits that sort of grew out of the FM Area Foundation with the Cass Clay Community Land Trust. Yep. There was a local need seen by the hospitals of, their workers not being able to, their more lower level workers sort of not being able to bridge that gap between living in an apartment and buying a home. And how do you get that workforce housing to get people to make that, grow roots in their community by becoming a homeowner? And the land trust was started by basically by the FM Area Foundation. I think I was the first sort of non-employee president of their board, and now it's thriving. We have 27 homes we've put people in, and it's just you've been a great partner, obviously.
Yeah, thank you. And that was even before my time. So probably about 7-8 years ago, they started this idea that, hey, let's create a Cass Clay land trust. And the concept's a little bit different than maybe your typical low-income or workforce housing opportunity in that the land really sits into a trust. And so once a property becomes affordable, it stays affordable. And that's a huge deal because and there's an argument for families taking some equity with them, but they still take some equity in this process. But the beauty of this is once a property or a home is deemed affordable, it can stay affordable through multi-generations and different families to come in and be able to use that space because the land sits in a trust. And so you take some of that cost out of it. Whereas some other housing opportunities, the family will take all the equity, which is a good thing too, but that house is only affordable one time. And now you're looking for new property, you're looking for other things. And most homes can, what is the average? You know this, you're on the board, 7 or 8 families. Is that what it says?
Right, yeah. And I mean, we've had all types of families too. So, single moms, we have had people with 7 kids,
Yep.
we've had families and all types. And I think, it's amazing to look at them. And some of these people have good jobs. I mean, they're nurses, those type of things, like good jobs, no debt. We don't, it's not somebody that has horrible credit or something,
Yep.
But they maybe don't have a long credit history. They don't have that,
For some folks, it's just
support.
that hand up from, renting or that apartment to that first home. And first home buyers it's the toughest right now than it ever has been. To have, and these are folks, like you just said, they're full-time workers. These are not people who are unemployed and have, these are most of the people that the Cass Clay Community Land Trust is helping, and a lot of our housing is helping, is people who just need that little extra help to get to that first home, and then they'll be on their way. And that's just much more difficult now in our society than it used to be.
So yeah, great testimonial for this. So you're also working with a lot of nonprofits. You have a caring catalog, which is open right now. This is like your push during these couple months to push to get people to give to certain nonprofits. Tell us about the caring catalog.
Yeah, we're excited. We've done this since 2018, and we've done it in a few different iterations. But in 2018, we started this idea, like, let's lift up some of our local charities to the entire community, and let's see if we can get them a little extra funding that they need at the end of the year. And it's the giving time of the year. At times we've done it from Thanksgiving on in December. This year, because of our 65th anniversary, we started a little bit early, so the Caring Catalog's open right now. You can go to areafoundation.org, click on the Caring Catalog. And in the last couple of years, what we've done, because we have a lot of nonprofits in our community, a lot of great nonprofits, it gets really hard to pinpoint, who's doing the best work. But we grant out to about 125, 150 nonprofits a year. So we decided in the last few years that we're going to take out of that 150 that we're granting to, that we have vetted, that we have looked at, that we are saying, hey, you are ones we want to support at the foundation. Then we're narrowing that list down to 25. And so we're able to put 25 charities, and again, not the only charities in our community, but they're the ones that we wanted to lift up, both old and new, to the community and say, hey, are these 25 that you should really pay attention to? And if we lift them up, they get into our Caring Catalog for free. We cover all the fees, and we just invite folks to support them till the end of the year.
And so say it again, how do people find that information?
The best place is just go areafoundation.org. The catalog is online, 100% online. We have information on every charity that's in the catalog right now on the 25, and you can click on their name there, and you can always give to these charities directly, but we're offering kind of a platform. Our online giving, you can go on to Caring Catalog at the areafoundation.org, and a lot of the donors pay the fees, the credit card fees that everybody gets frustrated with. But if they don't, we'll cover it. That's our gift to the community. It's one way that we support. So what's really cool about our fundraising event is 100% of the dollars that come into the foundation for these charities go directly to those charities. There's no fees, there's no hidden costs, there's no back-end costs that we take. It's our gift to the community.
And so you guys are a valuable member in our downtown, and you have a nice little home there.
We do.
We appreciate that. And you're also a partner of ours. We applied for a grant with the Downtown Neighborhood Association, who's doing a few murals this summer downtown, and we're sort of a fiscal entity to work with you. And sometimes groups and artists like that need support, right? They needed us to be the kind of fiscal nonprofit, and they needed somebody to help raise the money or have the money that's interested in local art. And it's obviously you get to then look at it out your back door, so to speak, in downtown.
Yeah, it's all a part of the again, our mission is to create a vibrant community full of opportunities for everyone. And what I like about our work is, it's never, you could say, what's more important, that we take care of homeless children, or we take care of pets, or we take care of the arts, or we take care of mental health. that's not fair to compare like that. There are lots of causes, and there's more than enough people to support those causes. And arts is an important part of not only downtown, but our entire community. It makes it a draw for other people to be here. It is a relief for people who need it. It's important. The murals are even more important because it's beautification in the city that everyone can experience. You were talking in your earlier session about the walkways by the rivers. Yep. The Sandbagger Memorial. We were part of that. A beautiful part of the city that everyone can enjoy. And so art is an important part, and our artists need to be supported as much as our other nonprofits, as much as our for-profits.
So in our last 30 seconds here, what's your pitch for the community on why they should give back to their community?
Well, what I love about being a community foundation, and it really ties in with what's happening nowadays, is everybody talks about eat local, support local art, and we believe in that too. Of course, fund the things that you're passionate about, but in today's world where things are getting so complicated and we're so polarized, the place where we can make the most difference and the biggest impact is right here at home. And so if you're looking for charities, you're looking for ways to impact something at home, and you're looking for ways to expand your philanthropy, get your family involved, and looking for a partner, that's what we do. We will partner and advise with you. We'll work with you in your philanthropy, and if you need help, we'll find the best local place for that money to go.
Well, that's great. And when we come back, we're going to have a couple other local change makers coming up with the United Way and the FM Area Coalition to End Homelessness. See you when you get back. Welcome back to Rocky's Downtown Hour. We're back with two local change makers in our community that are doing great work. Taylor Severson with United Way and Chandler Esslinger with the FM Coalition to End Homelessness. And appreciate you being on today to talk about your work. Taylor, welcome. We want to give us a rundown of what you do and what United Way's role is in this.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks so much for having us this morning. So good to be with you. At United Way of Cass Clay, our mission is to inspire and activate the community to improve lives. And we have a really explicit focus on lifting families out of poverty. There are United Ways all across the world, and our job is to respond to community needs. And so our community has called upon us to focus on lifting families out of poverty in three really unique ways. We call those our bold goals. And bold goal number one, they're in no particular order, is to prevent hunger and homelessness. Bold goal number two is preparing kids to succeed by making sure they're ready for school. And then also strengthening families through mental health supports and workforce development. Again, really focused on the unique barriers that families experiencing poverty have. And that really guides our partnership with the FM Coalition to End Homelessness and our work in United to End Homelessness.
And Chandler, you want to introduce yourself? You've been in your role for, over a year now?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. Congratulations.
Almost a year. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm the executive director of the Fargo Moorhead Coalition to End Homelessness. And our mission at the coalition is that we work in partnership to achieve permanent solutions to prevent and end homelessness, making it rare, brief, and one time, which is kind of the standard industry definition of ending homelessness. So we have over 70 different agencies that make up our coalition membership that kind of span the continuum of the homelessness response system, and a variety of different agencies that interact with that system as well. And so as the community conversation on homelessness continued to grow in focus and attention, the United Way, Taylor and I kind of put our heads together with the different stakeholder groups that we regularly interact with and the different unique strengths that our organizations have to team up and figure out what we can do both in the immediate sense of addressing some of the core challenges of homelessness in our community, and how do we have some longer term strategy and planning to see measurable reductions in homelessness over time. And so under the umbrella of United to End Homelessness, we are advancing some of those short term solutions, which we're excited to chat about, and that longer term work that our community really needs in order to make sure that we're seeing progress.
No, and I think one of the things I've experienced in just talking about homelessness with people is the word homeless is such a general term. And, on how many different nonprofits you work with as part of your coalition, and they're all working on a different aspect of it. There's crossover between each, but, how you end up homeless comes from a lot of different things. And so when you're going upstream to try to address the root problem, you're not addressing the root problem of homelessness. You're addressing the root problem of like 100 different things. And that's why you need to coordinate, right? And so what is the group that you formed, and what's the goal of it?
Yeah, I'd love to answer a couple questions there and pull that apart a little bit. I think we all have this this vision of what we think of when we think of a person experiencing homelessness. And Chandler and I get to share a lot throughout the community that homelessness is this really dynamic experience for folks, and it encompasses all demographic groups and all sort of complexities of life. And of the about 1,000 people who are experiencing homelessness in our community right now, they look like all of us. And sometimes there are parts of homelessness that are more visible, and other parts that are a little more hidden behind the systems and structures in our community that are working to help folks. And so we know that certain parts of our community's response to homelessness need a little more attention, need a little more support. And you'll hear us talk about the homelessness response system, which is really our community's infrastructure that is helping people at different stages of their experience with homelessness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, speaking of root causes, a lot of what we're talking about when we're trying to get upstream is how do we, when a family or an individual is facing a housing crisis, how do we intervene early enough to make sure that that doesn't lead to homelessness? And in the event that it does, then how are the community supports set up so that we're minimizing that length of time homeless, getting access to permanent housing as quickly as possible? And really, those are the innovations that we're talking about in terms of the specific short-term work that we're focused on. And so one of the activities that we advanced right away, thinking about, again, some of the challenges our community is facing in terms of unsheltered homelessness in public space, is how can we work together to build capacity up in agencies who are already doing this work successfully and target this specific population. And so we, with our steering committee partners, over 15 different nonprofit behavioral health agencies, came together and really honed in on how can we identify who the folks in biggest need are. And what we determined was that there's a specific group of people who are experiencing what we call high visibility homelessness. And this means that they are having high touch interactions with emergency services, with crisis response teams. They're living in public space, they're unsheltered, and how we know that they're facing very specific barriers that are preventing their pathway to permanent housing from kind of unfolding in front of them. And so when we can partner with these specific agencies, CAPLP, SENCA, Presentation Partners in Housing, increase their capacity to serve more people, focus on this population with some targeted, flexible supports, and build that pathway to permanent housing, we know that's going to not only improve the lives of the folks that we're trying to serve, but also the look and feel of our community as a whole.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for people to realize, because I think the visible homeless are what ends up getting talked about a lot. But anybody with kids in elementary school type thing, you get to learn a lot of new friends that your kids have, and every once in a while you realize, like, oh, that person doesn't have a home, or the reason they're in a new school is because that's where they live now, right? They're just surviving. And how do you get anything else done in your life when you have that uncertainty when you go home, or lack of home? And so it's been really interesting for me to, obviously deal with a high visibility homeless in downtown, and it's a different challenge sometimes than, the 1,000 people that are homeless on any given day across the community. And that's just a staggering number. And a lot of your wins you never see, right? Because if people never become homeless, that's sometimes the best win. It's not a drain on any system, doesn't require additional resources. You can stop the flood before it starts is the best way to do it.
And I think one of the things that's important to call out too is that the folks we're talking about who are experiencing visible homelessness make up the smallest portion of people experiencing homelessness in our community, but they need the biggest lift. They need the most support. The vast majority of people who experience homelessness are able to self-resolve their housing crisis and quickly move back into permanent housing. Maybe they need a few nights of stay at a shelter, maybe they need rent a deposit, all of those different things. And our system is really well equipped to do that. And we also know that we don't have enough resources to serve the number of people who are in need. And so we're actually housing more people than we ever have as a community and across the nation who are experiencing homelessness. But for every one person who becomes housed, we know 2 more people enter into homelessness. And so we are kind of always playing this game of catch up, no matter how efficient our system is, no matter how much great work we're doing. There just isn't enough kind of prevention efforts that are minimizing that inflow so that we're seeing the success that we're having every single day.
So, I've seen the charts, and so you have the 5 parts of your system, and you talk about how we're at capacity at some and maybe under capacity at others. Visualize that for us, for our radio audience. What does that look like, and where are we underachieving, I guess, in that?
Yeah, I think one of the most probably visible or something we hear about a lot when we talk about homelessness is that the shelters are full. And so we have a number of emergency shelters in our community that serve specific populations. They have specific strengths and programming that they're able to provide. On any given night, we have about 330 shelter beds available, but the number of people who are seeking shelter is far beyond that. So that means that not only do we not have enough shelter beds available, but because we don't have adequate pathways out of homelessness and into permanent housing, shelter can sometimes become a bottleneck. And that's not a fault of shelters. Shelters are doing the life-saving work of providing that emergency service. But when we aren't able to have people move quickly into permanent housing, they stay homeless longer, they're living in shelter longer, and that is just a really difficult experience for folks. And so we know that's one part of the system that's really overwhelmed. And that really leads us to the second part of our system that is overwhelmed. So when shelters are full, when there's more demand for service than there is resources available, we start to see more people in crisis in a variety of different places, whether that's doubled up or on the street or whatever it might be. And so we have a really robust outreach and coordinated entry group that is working on connecting with people, identifying people who are at risk of or currently experiencing homelessness. We often know those folks by name in our community, so we're really, really good at that, but we don't always have then the resources to match up with that person's needs in order to move them to a more permanent situation. So emergency shelter and that kind of outreach and coordinated entry, that entrance into the homelessness response system, are two of our most overwhelmed parts of the system. Taylor, do you want to talk a little bit more about?
Yeah, I'd love to share a visual to your question, Rocky. So we often think about the homelessness response system like a bathtub, for lack of a better term. And when there are more people entering homelessness, the bathtub faucet is on and the tub starts to fill up. The system is starting to serve those folks. When folks are maybe stuck in a part of the system or that those parts of the system are over capacity, the bathtub starts to overflow. And we think about those as inflow and outflow. And if we can address sort of decreasing the inflow, making sure that we kind of turn the faucet down, while also helping people exit homelessness into permanent solutions, we're going to start to balance the homelessness response system, which includes everything from that front door outreach and coordinated entry to the emergency kind of triage parts of our system, like emergency shelter, to the more permanent solutions like supportive housing and rapid rehousing efforts. But ultimately, like Chandler mentioned, when we can prevent and divert people from that experience of homelessness in the first place, we know that we're able to stabilize them more permanently.
Well, I appreciate that. We got to go to break here, but we're going to stick with Chandler and Taylor. I'm just going to combine your names together, I guess. You'll be a team. But yeah, we'll be back with you to talk more about your work when we get back. Welcome back. Happy Friday again. We are joined with Taylor Severson and Chandler Esslinger having a conversation about homelessness in our community and the actions that your teamed up group is working on. How's it going? I know it's been in the news a lot. And I think the question I get is, what's the update? Are we having success? Is it people coming together on this?
Thanks for asking us that also. We also hear that. And I think one of the myths is that, the homelessness response system is uncoordinated, or folks working on this are uncoordinated, but there is really deep collaboration. And some of what's been happening over the last couple of months has been the work has been happening. So we are really excited to share updates in kind of both parts of our work. The United to End Homelessness initiative is a regional initiative of leaders and service providers who have come together to, again, address both the crisis of homelessness in our community, the influx of high visibility homelessness, and what we're doing to build for the future, our community's plan to prevent and end homelessness in the future. And so we're really excited to share some updates around our direct service to people. Chandler mentioned, really excited to have collaborative partnership with presentation partners in housing, community action on both sides of the river, Seneca and CapLP. We've been able to increase staff at those agencies through some of the fundraising and financial resourcing we've been doing. We've activated a best practice program that works really well, that provides high intensity case management to individuals, helping them identify housing solutions and the wraparound supports that are going to help keep them stably housed. So we've increased staff, we've increased this coordination between these organizations, and we've started serving people. We know that our resources allow us to serve 20 of the approximately 55 individuals who are experiencing high visibility homelessness. And so far, we've already pulled 13 people into programming just over the last couple of weeks.
That's great. I was going to ask, for the numbers people out there, what data metrics do you look at to say, like, are we being successful? Where do we need more effort, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think one thing we know is that we're actually already having success in this model because it's a best practice model that many agencies already use, but it's this target on this specific population that is being missed in the current system. That is really the innovation that we've been able to achieve. So of those 13 individuals, about a third are like days away from tenancy. They've identified a unit. They're going to be moving into housing. The next third of individuals are still active in their housing search. And then the last third of individuals, kind of representing our most recent pull for programming, what we call it, are folks who are still in the outreach phase. So we know this group of 20 individuals that we have the capacity to serve have a cumulative homeless history of over 250 years of homelessness. And that means that a lot of these folks have not been connected to an agency for a very, very, very long time. Wow. So that trust, relationship building is really, really critical, and it lays the foundation for that long-term success. And so we'll be continuing to pull those 20 individuals, but if we had additional resources to meet that demand, we'd be able to do more of that capacity building work and more of that prevention work that we're seeking to do as well.
Okay, let's talk about resources, because I get this question because I end up talking about this topic a lot, and people that want to give, it's confusing, right? Because there's a lot of organizations with a lot of different pieces in this, and they're like, well, who should you give to? Who would you recommend I give to? And it's like, I don't want to look like I'm picking and choosing favorites, so how do you answer that question when someone just wants to give, wants to be helpful?
There are certainly many organizations in the community that are working to address this challenge, and there is also incredible generosity in the community to address our regional efforts, really this system-wide effort. United to End Homelessness is the place where folks can invest their dollars most strategically. We know that we've targeted about $2.5 million as our total fundraising goal at this time to address the highest visibility, highest need individuals right now. And by investing in that solution, people will be able to see and feel a difference in our community, and that will start to change the trajectory for our community's economic vitality, as well as set the stage for what we do next, how we keep this challenge from becoming one we're solving every single year.
So maybe a slight turn on that is, I think our nonprofits are doing a lot of work and people want to support nonprofits, but the government plays a role in this, and their advocacy with them and the policies they create. How should they engage with that? Because I think, I watch all the city commission meetings, and you can tell the people that are more effective or less effective. And I think everyone's just trying to do their best, right? It's tough to know how to advocate that if you don't know those waters. And so how do you recommend people get involved on the civic side of this discussion?
Yeah, one of the things we've been talking about a lot is how are we addressing our public figures to help them think about the policy solutions that we know work. And so if folks are interacting with their elected officials or other leaders in the community, instead of maybe asking the question, what are you doing to address homelessness in this very big sense, if you can change that question to what are you doing to make homelessness rare, brief, and one time, that drives solutions that get us closer to making progress on those systematic reductions in homelessness across our community. And so I think that specificity is really helpful in getting us to the quality of conversation and problem solving that we want to be engaging in.
And I would add, we're really thankful for the civic participation and the civic energy across our region. United to End Homelessness is well supported by the 5 metro communities and both counties. And they've helped authorize that this work is the strategic regional work that we need to be doing. They helped stand up the Casclay Interagency Council on Homelessness, which is the first cross-border council of its type in the nation. And so we know that there's a lot of energy and a lot of interest in working together, and we're really thankful for their support. And we know that that's an ongoing process.
No, and I appreciate your guys' work too, because I've been part of a lot of emotionally charged issues over the years, and I love it when I see the community come out with passion or frustration, because it's all coming from the same place that you want to address an issue. And so finding the right way to do that, where you're not just driving the wedge deeper, because that doesn't help anybody, but really trying to work together and figure out how can we all solve the problem that we all agree, right? We want to make it rare and less, and all your words that you said better than I did. We all want that, right? And so how do we work together if we're all coming from different places, and just get the best out of what we can all give?
That's a really good point. One of the things we talk about regularly is that we're working hard to build the table where we are identifying community-wide solutions to prevent and end homelessness, and that all voices are welcome. We all agree that we want to see less homelessness in our community, and we're going to work together to find the solutions that'll help us get there.
Well, I'm glad you're not just creating Reddit posts. So that's great.
Oh, thank you.
But no, okay, so we have a couple seconds left here. One thing I like to do, because you're both downtown people, give a shout out to something going on downtown that you just enjoy that's sort of outside your professional realm that you love about downtown. Give a shout out to somebody.
Okay. I'm a big fan of Amped School of Music. My absolute favorite event that happens every month on the first Thursday of every month is the Amped School of Music open mic night at the Sons of Norway. You get to see people of all ages and all skill levels practicing their craft, and it's just so fun, so much beautiful community making. So big shout out to Amped and the Sons of Norway.
Love it.
I need to check that out. I am a Red River Market fan. Rocky, I know we see each other there regularly every Saturday between July and October. And
I'll just do a shout out because Eric Wilkie, who was on the show today, is one of the sponsors of the Red River Market this weekend, so he'll be there. You can vote for your favorite nonprofit, and they get an award. So
love that. And United
segue.
Way is a strong supporter of Folkways and all the work that they do. So really excited to enjoy good food and good music and community building.
All right. Well, the market is at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and hope to see everybody there. Thank you, Taylor and Chandler, for all your work and for taking time with us today.
Thanks
We'll
so
see
much.
everybody next week.